final video of the Baroque era, which we are going to be focusing on France, and we are really going to be focusing on just one piece of architecture that symbolizes one man, Louis the XIV of France. So French Baroque art was in existence anywhere between 1661 to 1789. Some people would say 715. So with this, make sure you read the French Baroque outline I gave you. At the first page of the outline kind of gives you an overview of all the Baroque eras, and then it goes into the Palace of Versailles and then Louis the XIV. So when Louis the XIV becomes the King of France, France really becomes the powerhouse of Europe. They have the strongest military in all of Europe at this point in time. They are the richest country, more rich than England, more rich than the Italian city-states, and France is really at the height. The center of art moves now from Rome to Paris, and Paris will remain the the cultural artistic capital of the world until World War II, where it will shift to America and specifically New York City. So when we start to talk about French Baroque art, let's we got to talk about why is France now the center of the artistic world. And what happens is, once this loads, France is the most populated country and the most powerful. Louis XIV will take power in 1661, and he will reign for 54 years. That is a very long time to reign as a king. He is the preeminent patron of the arts. He will pay for a ton of art to be created during his lifetime. Louis and the kings that will follow will they'll all copy what Louis XIV does. They will try to dazzle the artistic world by creating and giving money to various artists. They are going to increase the size of Versailles as time goes on. And he is just this powerhouse, an important person that life in France and even the world really revolves around. So Louis XIV was an absolute monarch, which meant that he had complete control of all of the governmental affairs in France. He also believed in the divine right of kings, that he was the god. He had the God-given right to rule over France, and that God chose him to rule over France. And he will use art as propaganda to enforce that idea. And if you think back to where we saw that before, we've seen that in Native American cultures with in Yaxchilan. We have seen that in ancient Rome with the Augustus of Prima Porta. So this is not something new in art history. Here we got Louis XIV there. He was known as the Sun King. All aspects of life inside of France revolve around him. His love of glory is really what will drive him to build Versailles. And then again, just propaganda. The governmental leader, the religious leader, the military leader of all aspects of French life. And he is going to cultivate his public image through the use of art. Just like the Catholic Church tries to use art as propaganda in the Counter-Reformation, he will use it to enforce his power and his glory. He thought that the citizens of France were too ill-educated to understand how government works, and he tried to make himself appear so grand that they almost were like, wow, no one else could rule this country besides this man. So that's one of the other reasons why his art is it always appears to be on such a grand scale. So we're gonna skip through this because we've talked about these questions before, and we're gonna jump right into Versailles. It's huge. It is the largest palace in the European world. The only thing that rivals it is the Forbidden City in China, which we've looked at. It is huge. It has. All of the nobles of France will be invited to come live with him because obviously it's like an honor to live in the same palace as the king. But then Louis also got to influence them because they lived with him. They almost were indebted to him. So he had even a firmer grip on the wealthy and powerful in his country by inviting them to live here. Over 30,000 people are going to work to build Versailles over a 20-year span. And it actually starts out as a relatively small little hunting lodge about 12 miles outside of the city of Paris. And then Louis XIV is going to want to expand it and turn it into what it is today. It has an opera hall, a chapel, a place for government officials to meet, apartments for the royal family, apartments for members of the nobility. It is really a city within one building. And he is going to really build it outside of the city of Paris because Paris was crowded, it was dirty, and he wanted to get away from the muck and yuck of the average citizen. And today, it's just a palace that is a museum, and it is sometimes used for official government functions. It is not where the current president of France lives, and it is just a national landmark. I've got some videos and links to the videos down below if you do want to watch them. I already talked to you guys about what the palace was before before it turned into the Palace of Versailles that it is. It was originally located in a small village. It was a hunting lodge used by the various kings of France. So it starts in 1668, finished in 1710. So again, that's a little bit longer of a architectural creation period than I expected. It overlooked these large gardens. It really wasn't fortified because there was no, there was really, it wasn't close to any borders within France, so they didn't have to worry about attacks from other countries. The nobles lived in kind of modest apartments throughout Versailles, and Louis's bedroom was in the middle, in the center, on the second floor, facing the rising sun. That whole idea that he's in the middle of things in French life. He is what everything revolves around in French life. He is that sun king. And there was elaborate ceremonies that dictated how the king was woken up in the morning, how the king went to bed. It was just really almost like treating him like literally a living god. The architects that you have to know, though, are one's an architect, one's a designer of the interior. So one of them is Louis Levoux, and the other one is Jules Ardouin Montserrat. So you have to know those two guys. It goes from, again, a hunting lodge to an elaborate palace. The center was Louis's bedroom. The building centered among a vast garden, and the gardens expand into these large canals in the rear of the palace itself. The Hall of Mirrors is essentially the throne room, where there's a 240-foot long mirror that reflects the garden outside. And we're going to spend kind of really a lot of our time in this video just looking at the images of the painting. So you have this, that's the main entrance of Versailles. The king's bedroom and apartment was above. That's the king's bedroom, ornate. The reason why they have the railing there is because the nobles would stand behind it as they woke him up in the morning. When he woke up, that was the official start of the French day. Another. We also have a Bernini sculpture here. So Bernini, that artist, that sculptor from Italy, also will come and create a sculpture of Louis XIV. That's his bust. That is the outside of the palace chapel right here. So it had its own chapel. You see the inside there, the frescoed ceiling. Very, very Baroque. Looks very almost like Italian Baroque. That's the altarpiece with the bursting sun. These are some images of the exterior garden. So all these plants being imported. You have palm trees and things like that. Some of the queens of France will have rose gardens in the rear. During the summer months, there are little chateaus that are built out by the canals where the royal family will live to get a breeze and get away from kind of the nobles living in the palace. Again, the gardens during the summer months. Huge. The space is almost overwhelming. I was there once and it was amazing. This is when Louis XIV looked at his bedroom window. This was in the center pond that was in the back. It was essentially Helios, the sun god, rising out of the water to start the day, just like he was the sun king. This is the opera hall inside of the palace. Again, all gilded gold leaf. This is the Hall of Mirrors, huge. 4,000 candles were used to illuminate the loom, and it was just this. It was extremely bright because the light would reflect off the mirrors and the gold. They say it was almost overwhelming. Again, Hall of Mirrors there again, which is the throne room and reception room. Also famous in world history because that's where the treaty for World War I was signed and World War I officially ended. Again, just all of the ornate gold leaf and the amount of money spent here. The amount of money spent to create Versailles will almost bankrupt the country. This is the Queen's bedroom again. They did not sleep in the same room. They had their own apartments. Louis XIV had many, many, many side pieces, as we would say, and the queen's apartment was relatively separate from her husband's, and that was because she was just there to help create heirs to the throne. They weren't really in love. Queen's room again, very floral, very pink. And after all of this, what was the purpose of the palace? All to show his power. And then this, not a painting that you have to know, but this is a painting of Louis. That's seen as the most famous. He's in his coronation clothing. It is life size. The total painting is 9 feet. It enhances his omnipotence. He insisted on having his legs shown this way because he thought they were very nice and shapely. He has his sword and scepter there that symbolizes his power and might. And then that column in the background kind of symbolizes the connection of France to the greatness of ancient Rome. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it. We are now done the Baroque era. Our next unit is going to be getting into French art again, but of the Rococo period and then Neoclassicism. And that'll be all for the end of this week. Good luck on, hope you liked the Baroque unit, and I will see you in our next video.